Rooms that speak. A story of floral print, presented by Quintessential Home. Floral patterns have long been part of the quiet poetry of home. Found on curtains, cushions, wallpapers, and upholstery, they bring a sense of ease and continuity, softening rooms and linking indoors with the natural world. From early block prints to contemporary reinterpretations, their presence speaks not only of beauty, but of tradition, comfort, and care. Shaped by trade, technique, and domestic life itself, florals remain a lasting motif, gathering the rhythm of seasons and weaving the language of the garden gently into the fabric of everyday living. Floral decoration in domestic life has, from the very beginning, held significance beyond its surface charm. It offered a way to draw nature closer, to extend the language of the garden into bedrooms, drawing rooms, and morning parlours. In households where climate, seasons, and light-shaped daily experience, flowers became both a symbol of the changing year and a comfort against its harsher turns. Unlike a bouquet that faded, a sprigged muslin or printed calico preserved the bloom, stylized perhaps, but no less rooted in a collective admiration for the natural world. The story of floral furnishings, however, begins far beyond the hedgerows of the countryside. In the 17th century, cotton textiles arrived from India bearing exquisite patterns. Vines, buds, palmettes, and fantastical florals dyed in hues both fast and vibrant. These chintzes, particularly those from the Coromandel coast, were block printed with remarkable intricacy. Unlike woolen cloth or linen, which were difficult to clean and heavy in the hand, cotton was smooth, absorbent, and refreshingly light. Its practicality made it ideal for everyday use, while its patterning delighted the eye. These early textiles were highly prized. Bed hangings, window drapery, and wall coverings made from chintz appeared in well-appointed homes, often layered with embroidered linens or framed by hand-stitched borders. At a time when the garden was becoming an object of leisure and study, it is no coincidence that these floral fabrics found favour. They aligned beautifully with a domestic life that sought to blend beauty with comfort, nature with order. The popularity of these imports did not go unnoticed. Domestic textile producers, particularly in regions reliant on wool, saw the growing demand for printed cotton as a threat. In response, legal restrictions were introduced. A ban on printed cotton imports in 1700, followed by a broader prohibition in 1721 that limited their use altogether in household furnishings and attire. These restrictions, though firm in wording, were porous in practice. British print workshops continued to experiment, producing similar designs on linen or fustian blends that skirted the letter of the law. By the time the bans were lifted in the 1770s, the technology of textile printing had advanced significantly, particularly with the introduction of copperplate printing and water-powered mills. This period saw the birth of a flourishing domestic print industry, and floral motifs remained central. Inspired both by imported patterns and local plant life, designs grew more refined. While early florals were often fantastical, the Enlightenment brought a new attention to accuracy. Botanical illustration flourished. Pattern books began to feature roses, violets, lilacs, and wildflowers rendered with a scientific eye. The bloom on a printed curtain might now reflect a real species, recognizable to a gardener or naturalist. This careful observation did not strip the textile of romance. On the contrary, it deepened it. A room adorned with climbing honeysuckle or soft pink roses was no longer merely decorative. It became part of a wider culture of nature appreciation, closely tied to collecting, sketching, and gardening. By the mid-19th century, printed floral textiles had become more widely accessible. The Industrial Revolution allowed for the mass production of cotton cloth, and with it, the diffusion of floral furnishings into middle-class and professional households. Bedrooms were softened with printed eiderdowns. Parlours were adorned with loose chair covers, antimacassars, and curtained alcoves in small, repeated motifs. Pattern was no longer reserved for showrooms or aristocratic manners. It became part of the ordinary beauty of everyday life. The idea of a truly comfortable home, layered with soft furnishings and shaped by domestic rhythm, became central to Victorian values. Floral textiles played a quiet but consistent role in that ideal. They lent warmth to drafty corridors, charm to children's rooms, and grace to dining areas otherwise defined by functionality. Pattern also served a practical purpose. A repeated sprig or trailing bloom concealed wear, gathered dust less obviously than plain cloth, and allowed rooms to feel cared for even in the midst of a busy household. It was in this atmosphere that new stylistic movements began to take hold. Movements that challenged the relentless pace of industrial production but did not abandon floral beauty. The style now known as arts and crafts emerged as a response to mechanized excess. Its floral designs, often drawn from native species and historic pattern books, introduced a denser and more structured rhythm. Patterns such as trellis, marigold, and pimpernel reflected not only aesthetic preference, but also a philosophical position, that beauty should be rooted in place, craft, and daily use. Throughout the early 20th century, floral textiles retained their popularity, though their tones and scales shifted in response to changing tastes and domestic needs. As homemaking gained new cultural importance, domestic craft became both a form of economy and quiet expression. Magazines and handbooks offered patterns for curtains, cushions, and table linens, many in floral motifs, thoughtfully scaled for modest interiors. These were often printed on cotton or glazed chintz in subdued palettes: dove blue, soft lilac, tea rose, and sage, colours which softened hard lines and made compact rooms feel generous and calm. By the middle of the 20th century, floral patterns remained at the heart of domestic interiors, now arranged with greater confidence and a sense of harmony. Printed textiles were thoughtfully coordinated across curtains, pelmets, upholstery, and wallpaper, often led by a favourite floral quilt or matching bed cover. Rather than feeling staged or excessive, these combinations created rooms that were soft, balanced, and deeply comfortable. Florals lent a quiet rhythm to daily life, offering charm, warmth, and a gentle continuity that made a house feel unmistakably like home. Several design houses rose to prominence during this period, offering vast archives of historic florals alongside new interpretations. Their patterns appeared in both grand country homes and modest cottages, tailored to suit room size, light, and personal taste. The layering of prints, once born of necessity, became a mark of sophistication. A smaller scale pattern on a blind might be set against a bolder floral on a wing chair, while the same colour notes ran through cushions, drapery, and wallpapers. Throughout the second half of the 20th century, the floral tradition never disappeared. It merely adjusted. In times of economic constraint, florals spoke of thrift and making do. In times of prosperity, they signaled elegance and a cultivated domestic life. Always they reflected a deep understanding of home as more than shelter. Floral furnishings offered texture, warmth, and the quiet reassurance of familiarity. Into the 21st century, florals continue to evolve. Today, archival designs are reimagined with fresh palettes, adjusted scales, and new applications. Digital printing has allowed for finer control and broader access. Yet the essence remains unchanged. Floral textiles are chosen not simply for appearance but for feeling. They lend a room softness and continuity. They echo the seasons without demanding attention. They speak to a sensibility shaped by time, one that values comfort, memory, and the subtle layering of beauty. Contemporary interiors may feature floral prints on Roman blinds, on scatter cushions in a reading nook, or on upholstery that tempers the severity of clean-lined furniture. In larger homes, entire rooms may still be papered in blooms, softening the echo, warming the corners. In smaller homes, a single print, carefully placed, can lend the same sense of charm and enclosure. What has remained constant across centuries and styles is the way florals make a room feel settled. They offer a rhythm that is neither loud nor dull, a presence that is decorative yet never intrusive. They suit rooms that are used, rooms where tea is poured, letters are written, and the light changes hour by hour. They are not fleeting trends, but part of a long domestic tradition shaped by the garden, the workshop, and the memory of how a home should feel. To live among florals is to live with repetition, familiarity, and a quiet nod to nature. A single rosebud on a curtain hem, a meandering vine along a border, a scatter of bluebells on a cushion. These small gestures build a language of comfort. They remind us that a home need not impress to be beautiful. It need only bloom gently, again and again.